Hello, welcome to Your Money and Real Estate. We're in a very common stage right now where I've got my good friend, compatriot, and mortgage broker Carmen on the line. Carmen, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I have a guest here who's also in the mortgage business, and we're going to be touching a little bit on rent-to-owns. But before we do that, I thought that why don't we talk a little bit about where the mortgage business is at right now, because I know that's your biz.
Yeah, that is. And, well, the rates are continuously low, as they've been for the past few months. Residential 5-year rates, 2.99%, which is amazing. It's better, I think, than the variable rate. If you can lock in for 5 years, you've really got it made.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great. Commercial, which is 6 units and plus, which is multi-residential, what I'm referring to, is in the 3.5% range. And if we insure it with CMHC, we're in the 2.7% range and lower.
So, Carmen, if someone's calling in or is looking for a mortgage, you obviously could set them up with a 3.5% on a fourplex?
Actually, on a fourplex, you're still getting 2.99 because that's considered residential. And the loan to value is still 80%. So when you buy a fourplex, you're getting 80% financing, and you're getting 2.99%, and you're still able to get 30-year amortization.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is fantastic. So it's great. It's time to buy or leverage your real estate and lend your money. Seriously.
I think we're talking a little bit about that as well. But what do you mean by leverage and lend there, Carmen?
Well, if you have existing real estate, let's say an owner-occupied home, apartment buildings, or even just residential fourplexes, it would be a great time to refinance today, borrow at 2.99% with a 30-year AM, and then you can lend your money. You can become a private lender. And basically the returns on that are anywhere between 10 and 15%, and that seems almost too good to be true, but it's a reality. And most of my lenders say, Carmen, don't promote it because we don't want the rates to go down in that industry. We want to maintain that high-yielding return.
Yeah, Guy and I were just referring to that that's how he started, is he had a credit line that he was able to tap into, invest it into a property, get a higher return, pay off the credit line, and then obviously there was cash flow left over. That's basically, you're saying the same thing. When you refi at such a low rate, there's available money to reinvest at a higher rate.
Well, exactly, and reinvest, because today the ability to find properties at cash flow is very slim because the market is so strong. Everybody's getting into buying real estate because they know, and it's been proven now.
That's true.
And it's been more exposed that it's very viable. And so if you lend your money versus just buying the real estate, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, it's great too, but if you can find it. So in this way, while the market's so hot, you can put your money into mortgages and you have your money secured, and you can actually earn, 10 to 15% on your money. And I'm seeing 15% continuously. It's not unrealistic.
Wow. And you're right about the fact that the market's tightening up. I was talking to quite a few investors saying they want to invest, but they're finding it very difficult to find property out there right now. So,
well, there's nothing available. Everybody is investing. Canada's so strong, and our real estate is so strong, and there's more room for growth. So, internationally, people are coming to our country and investing, and they're eating up all our opportunity.
Carmen, as always, you're touching on so many things I want to talk about, but I got Guy here chopping on the bit. Is there anything else? Sorry, I don't mean to say that. I gotta, but we could talk forever, as I always say. But
yes, we could. But we are having a forum tomorrow evening, actually, and I know it's late notice for people to know tonight, but
okay.
It is on a discussion about the start to finish process on private lending.
Perfect.
And how you can utilize your RSPs, how you can, take cash from your real estate, and the start to finish process. So if anyone wants to come, you have the address because I gave it to you earlier.
I do. And you know what? It's probably going to touch on a lot of what Guy's talking about, what you're talking about, and how anyone out there can get involved. So it's tomorrow night, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's at the Howard Johnson on Yonge Street in Aurora. It starts at 7 o'clock, and you're going to be there, and you're going to bring, it's a forum, so there's going to be multiple speakers as well. And
right.
I think that if anyone wants to come out and meet me, we'd love to see you out there. So, Carmen, I'm going to have to say ta-da until tomorrow night. and
Okay.
we'll talk soon. Thanks for the
Okay,
call.
take care. Have a great night.
Thanks, Carmen. Bye bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, there you go. So it's good to know that Carmen is as well. Probably sounds like she's doing a little bit of what you're doing there. So.
Absolutely.
But you made a switch though, because I know that Carmen is a mortgage broker, and
Yes.
that's what she specializes in. But it sounded, we were just touching on that you moved out of the mortgage, standard, finding mortgages, and moved into what you called rent to own, and we had to go
Absolutely.
to break. So why don't we pick up from there?
Absolutely. I kind of stumbled across it. I came across a friend, Mark Loeffler, who actually introduced me to rent to own. So the first time I saw it, I kind of looked through the spreadsheet and I kind of looked at it because at the time I already had real estate and I kind of knew what type of cash flow I was getting. Like a single family home, I was getting about $200-300 per month, and I felt like the hero. Okay,
Yeah.
Yay, I'm making money. Okay, and then I got into multis and everything else, and then I started looking at these rent-to-own deals, and some of the cash flows were like $600-700, up to $1,000 a month.
Wow.
I'm going, what's wrong with these deals?
Yeah.
It's too good to be true.
Yeah, looking a horse in the mouth kind of thing.
Absolutely. So I started doing more research about it and exactly what it did. And I saw the programs, I saw the stuff that's coming out of the States. Unfortunately, when I started doing more Googling on the stuff, I saw a lot of negative stuff because there's a lot of fraud associated with rent to own. Oh, absolutely. When you think about it, what are most rent to own guys are? They're either landlords, property managers, realtors, individual investors. And these are people basically that has a home. Maybe they couldn't rent it out and they decided, let's put an ad in Kijiji or Craigslist and say, let's do a rent to own. You could rent this house and then you could own it, you could build up the down payment, we'll slot away $100 every month.
You're going really quick.
Yes.
And as I was saying, let's slow it down a bit and maybe talk generally about what is rent to own. So you mentioned, people can get into it and you're touching on a lot of things. Just pull back and say generally, how does a rent to own system work?
Okay.
Not necessarily what you're doing, but
Right.
how does because you touched on it, but let's break it down so our viewers can understand it.
Sure. A typical rent-to-own client would be, let's say, a young family who's gone to the bank. Let's say they walked into their corner bank and say, basically, I want to buy a home. I have 5% down. Can I be qualified? Unfortunately,
Qualified because of credit, qualified.
absolutely.
Okay.
Credit, the income to debt ratios, they have to look at
TDS,
all.
GDS, all that.
Absolutely. They got to be able to afford it. Okay, at the end of the day, they got to be able to pay the bank. And if you have any credit issues, especially in this time of age where everything's all tightened up, especially in the market, if your beacon scores is not strong enough or maybe your income's not strong enough, you get a very swift decline, probably within 24 hours.
Wow.
Okay? So that's how fast. And right now in Canada, they're declining people at a record pace. Record pace.
Is that because of some of the new legislation? I've heard, Jim Flaherty changing 30 to 25, mortgage markets tightening up. Is that because it's been legislated, or is it just that the banks are saying, I'm getting a little bit scared what's happening down in the U.S. I better, slow it down?
Well, absolutely. I see the interest rates are very low, like Carmen
it's
described.
killer.
And really, banks are businesses. And they don't like defaults. Nobody likes defaults, right? Because, you're lending at 2.99 and your client's not paying you. That's not, you're not a happy camper.
Yeah.
So they kind of have to watch who they lend to. They really want to make sure when they lend it out, they get paid. Okay,
Right.
And that's the most important.
Okay, so we were saying that your typical rent to own is someone that was declined.
Yes.
And then what's their next move then?
Their next move, basically, they will walk in. Well, they're going to be looking at ads. A lot of times, there's a lot of ads in Kijiji, Craigslist, even a local newspaper, basically advertising. There's a house rent to own. Basically, all you have to do is give them a down payment. It could be anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000. They will charge you the normal rent, and they'll add maybe a couple $100 more per month. So that gets accumulated. So the extra dollar gets accumulated with the down payment. So at the end of the term, usually about 12 months, 24 months, you will have like a little nest egg, which you could actually walk into a bank and try to get qualified.
So on what you're saying then is the normal mortgage would be $1,000. You add, there's a little bit tacked on, but that, let's say, so from 1,000 you go to 1,200. That 200 gets put aside.
Correct. It gets put aside by the actual owner of the property, which the actual tenant moves in, which the owner is the investor. So that gets accumulated. So in a way, it turns into accumulating security deposit.
Okay.
So the actual investor holds on it. Now the investor actually sells that particular house to the actual tenants that own it. So virtually, investor has an exit strategy. They know what their cash flow is. They're getting a security deposit that's greater than the first and last month.
Sure.
So most investors feel pretty comfortable with that, and that's a very good way to start it. So that is your real typical rent-to-own deal.
So again, so let's just walk through the steps. You need two things. You need one is an investor that owns a single family home,
Right.
and is kind of like saying, you know what, I don't want to be a typical landlord.
Yes.
I think I'd rather have someone buy the house, but I'm going to buy it. I'm going to sell it to him. I'll use that word in brackets,
Yes.
as a rent to own. The rent to own. The person that was declined at the bank is the type of tenant that you want in a rent to own. If I can use that word tenant, use those words loosely, because we are talking about investors. Most people think you rent, but you're saying that this structure is not really the same because the person is actually owning it. Is that how it works?
They don't own it yet. It's almost like they're promised to buy it. So it's like an option.
So the document then, because a lot of us are familiar with tenant lease agreements.
Yes.
Is it a lease agreement, or
There
is
is
it
a lease
purchase?
agreement.
It's purchase and sale.
It is a lease agreement, and there's also an additional contract allowing them to purchase at a set price in advance. So the investor and the actual tenants would negotiate. Yeah, if you're buying a house for this much right now, it's how much it's worth. How much is it worth in future? So they'll set the price in advance. Okay, it's an agreement between the investor as well as the actual tenant owners.
Is that so? So we have a regular
Yes.
regular tenant agreement, tenant lease agreement.
Yes.
And then there's a secondary rent to own agreement
Correct.
that you're saying puts the future price.
Yes.
And is that a purchase and sale agreement, as we would call that, or is it?
In most cases, most contracts, it is not.
Okay.
Okay, it's usually just a standard contract, okay, between the actual investor and the actual
Promissory
tenant
note
owners.
kind of
Promissory note type thing, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Now, the beauty of it, why a lot of people go into that, is the exact reason why, people hate dealing with rentals, because of maintenance issues, bouncing checks, problematic tenants. Taking a rent-to-own tenant is a little bit different from your regular, multi-type tenants,
Sure.
because they're not just working like a McJob, okay? These people usually have careers, they have families, they have kids. So the income level is a little bit different, and the mentality is a little bit different from let's say a single, 24-year-old guy that just came out of university and is working on their first job. They're not going to put too much concern about the actual rental apartment, so they don't really take care of it all that well. And that's very typical of most rentals or student rentals, that type of stuff. Or even individuals where, you might get a factory worker or somebody working in hospitality, food service or something. They don't always have the same, pride of ownership,
Yeah.
like a family
Sure,
would.
yeah.
Because they really want to make sure that, they got furniture for the kids and they want to really live there. They want to have a backyard, front yard, and a basement. That's all important for them.
Yeah.
So it's a different quality of tenant, and that's something that's kind of stuck to me.
You're touching on a lot of things that I think I'd like to talk about. We're going to take a bit of a break, but after the break,
Okay.
we're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to get into some numbers.
Awesome.
Because the tenant things, some of these contracts, I think some people need to take a look at that. And we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with your money and real estate.